class.
Thanks, Felicia. I'm coming to you live from Dallas today, so I got my cowboy hat on. And my name's Megan, and I do work at Michael's. And today we are going to be creating a really fun bling bandana. So this bling bandana is easy to do for a beginner sewer or beginner crafter. You can make a really cool rhinestone beaded fringe bandana that you could put onto a hat, or you could put onto your neck. You could wear to your next bachelorette party, concert, Saturday, whatever day you want to do. So we're going to be making this together with a bandana. You're also going to use a roll of this ribbon, and this rhinestone ribbon is kind of the key to this project. So if you haven't gotten some yet, make sure that you run to Michael's and grab a roll of this. It comes in 6 inches and it is 3 yards long, so you can make several projects using the same roll of ribbon. I think I've made about 3 different bandanas myself. You can also use this to sew onto different things like a jean jacket if you want some extra fringe on a jacket. Felicia and I have been going back and forth with ideas this morning about using this bling on ornaments, using it on shoulders, just really making things pop. So welcome. Thank you for joining me. And I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my other camera. And I'm going to be showing you all the steps you need in order to create this bandana. So I will tell you that a worn bandana is actually going to look a lot cooler than something brand new. So this green one is brand new, but I did go ahead and put it through the wash once to kind of get rid of some of those extra creases, because after you've attached the rhinestones to it, it's going to be less able to be put into machines. You're just going to want to hand wash it once you have these sewn on, because you don't necessarily want these to melt or do anything funny. So you might want to wash your bandana before you are ready to attach anything to it. And then once you are using it and once you got it going, you can always throw it, hand wash it, and then definitely hand dry it too with those rhinestones attached. So what I love about this also is that you can roll up this bandana and you can add it to a hat, and then it can be a really cool, fun piece kind of floating off the back with those extra rhinestones, really just kind of giving you some extra attention. So there's lots of ways you can wear this piece once you're done, and you don't need a ton of things to be able to do it. So the bandanas come in so many different colors. And what's fantastic about the bandanas is that the measuring I would be doing for the sewing project is already done because of the lines that are created on the bandana design. So that is very helpful. This roll of bling rhinestones, we're going to be attaching this. And the way we're going to be attaching it is using embroidery floss and using an embroidery needle. You can use a regular needle and thread too, but I kind of like the thickness that an embroidery floss gives because it feels a little bit more secure in case these are a little bit more heavy. So pick an embroidery floss that's going to match and going to go well with whatever color your bandana is so that your stitches can kind of disappear. I'm also going to use masking tape instead of pins because it's fast and it's easy, and I want this project to be as easy as it can be. And I'm going to have a ruler handy also. So with all that being said, I've taken my bandana and I folded it into the traditional bandana triangle. And you have these nice lines that we're going to line up the rhinestones on. And then I'm going to use masking tape rather than taking the time to pin it. I'm literally going to tape it onto the bandana, and I'm going to be adding those rhinestones from there. So a couple of recommendations. On this bandana I have, as an example, I only used 3 inches because I didn't want it to go too much further up the bandana. But if you want a much fuller kind of chest full of rhinestones, then I'm going to recommend that you do anywhere between 6 to 8 inches. But you do not want to cover your entire bandana because you need a spot up here that doesn't have any rhinestones on it, so that when you put these ends together in order to tie them together to actually tie on your bandana, you don't want a lot of rhinestones here to give you extra clunk and clutter. So don't go all the way up with your rhinestones. Probably about 6 to 8 inches would be more than enough. So I'm going to measure out and decide. I think I'm going to go with 8. And I'm measuring my 8 inches, which is going to get me probably about halfway up the bandana. And then I'm just going to cut with regular scissors. And this rhinestone ribbon is so cool. The rhinestones are all kind of sewn together with this interesting like netting sort of thing that's attaching them all together. And so right now there's no fringe, it's just a solid piece of ribbon. And I'm going to sew that solid piece of ribbon over here. I'm going to cut 8 inches for the other side also. So I can just match it and cut right through this line. And when you're cutting through this line of rhinestones, it's an interesting texture because the threads that are holding the rhinestones together are a little bit thicker than embroidery floss, but they're not quite wire. So it's somewhere in between there. And then we are going to place these, and we're going to use the lines of our bandana to help keep everything lined up. And when I'm sewing this, I'm only going to sew through one of the layers of my bandana. So you could, if you want, take that extra layer just so that you don't get confused and go ahead and toss that up. And I'm going to line these up to the corner. And you can decide if you want to leave this row of circles or if you want to go all the way up to the line. And I'm going to go all the way up to the line with mine. So I'll show you that. And I'm going to take my masking tape and I'm literally going to tape it. So you could take your time and you could use pins, but you know what? This is fast and I promise you it works just as well. So I'm only covering up about one of the rows of rhinestones, but having that masking tape really keeps that lined up nice and straight for me. And then if I go over here, I'm going to do the same kind of thing, where I'm going to go all the way down to that corner space, and I'm on the line with my rhinestones here. And I'm going to take my masking tape and I'm going to tape this down as well. And I'm going to cover just about the first row of rhinestones and not much more than that. And then we will come back to the center and we'll add in another string here so that when they all kind of fall together with gravity, you'll still have something covering in the center as well. So we'll get back to that centerpiece and we'll cover that up. But first we're going to do our stitching. So we are going to be doing a little bit of sewing, but this is very basic sewing. So even if you've never done any kind of sewing before, it's very possible that you can do this project. I'm going to be taking an embroidery needle and some embroidery floss that matches my bandana. And I'm going to take probably more than a foot, I would say about 20 inches. You don't want to do too much because you don't want it to start being so long and unruly that it's going to get a lot of knots in it. But you want to be able to thread your embroidery floss through your needle. And if your embroidery floss is too thick to go through your needle, embroidery floss usually comes in 8 strands or 6 strands. So you can pull some of these strands apart and make a thinner amount of embroidery floss if that's going to work better to fit inside whatever size needle you have. And you can, of course, use regular needle and thread also. There's nothing stopping you from that. But I do like using the embroidery floss of the same color to kind of give it some extra weight and be able to kind of protect some of those rhinestones. I'm tying a knot at the end of my embroidery floss, and that knot is going to go on the back of my bandana. And what's also great about this ribbon is that it's kind of a grid pattern. And so what I'm going to be doing first is I'm going to be going to one of the lines that's closest to my masking tape, and I'm going to be doing some up and down stitches. So I'll show you more closely as soon as I get this first piece through. So here I have my needle coming through this row, and I go all the way until my knot is on the back of my bandana. And then because this is such a nice grid pattern, you can decide if you want to skip maybe 2 spaces, but I'm going to be going in these empty squares from the ribbon material. And you don't want to go diagonal because then you're going to actually cover up a rhinestone. But as long as you stay on the exact same stitching path, that same line, when you go up and down, you're going to see that that green floss is going to kind of get mixed in. And you can't really tell. I don't think you can really see that stitch that I just made. because that floss is going really nicely with the background bandana color. So I am now down underneath my bandana, and I'm going to come up. Before I come up, I'm going to make sure that my masking tape lineup is still lined up really nicely with the line. So I'm making this line on purpose match up with the line on my bandana. And now that I know it's really nice and secure, I'm going to be coming up and down with some stitches. So now my needle is coming up towards me, and I pulled all the way through and then going back down. And I'm doing what we call a running stitch. So you can make this running stitch as long or as short as you'd like. And as long as you stay in the same row, you're not covering up any of your rhinestones, and you are giving a really nice secure line, which is connecting these rhinestones to your bandana so that it will be ready to party with you. And these rhinestones aren't going anywhere. So what's nice again about the lines of the bandana is that they line up these rhinestones perfectly for you on that top line. And then we are going to go down towards the bottom and kind of secure them along that bottom line too. But then there's plenty of fringe left over that we're going to cut up in order to give us some movement. So I'm doing a nice running stitch towards the top where my masking tape is in a straight line. And I am going to do some more stitches, another row going across a little bit further down, closer to the end of the bandana. So rethreading my needle, I'm undone. Gotta have good eyes. All right, here we go. And I'm just doing this running stitch of going up and down. And again, with a running stitch, you can do 1 or 2 or 3 even stitches at a time by going up and down and pulling all of those stitches at the same time. So that kind of can help you speed up your sewing process. I'm going to go down one more time, and then I'm going to come down closer to the end of the bandana, and I'm going to do another line of stitches going across. And you can see so far, you can see these running stitches, but what's nice is because they're the same color, they're really blending in pretty nicely. And if you wanted to make your stitches even smaller, they'd be a lot more invisible than some of the larger stitches I have. So now I'm going to go down further to the end of the bandana, and I'm going to do another row, probably about 2 sets of rhinestones above where the end of the bandana is. And I'm going to pull up a running stitch here. And I'm going to make sure that this is nice and flat so I'm not bunching it. And I'm going to be going up and down that same line, going across. And in case you just joined us, so far what we've done is we've taken our rhinestone ribbon and we've cut 8 inches. We lined up those 8 inches with the line on the bandana. I'm using masking tape, but you can use safety pins, you can use regular straight pins, whatever you want to kind of secure it in the right location. And then we're just doing a running stitch going across in order to give us a nice line and keeping those rhinestones connected to the bandana. If you have any questions, those of you who are with me live right now, thanks for joining me. Please feel free to ask anything in the chat, and Felicia and I will do our best to answer. Is there anything in the chat right now, Felicia? I don't.
So far, no, there's not.
All right. If you have any questions, let us know. I'm just going to keep enjoying this project. It's pretty relaxing. So I can foresee wearing this, like I said, you could have a bachelorette weekend where everybody kind of dresses up. You could have a costume contest for Halloween. You could use it for a concert, or, you know, if this is your style, you can wear it any day of the week. So all of those are options. I think I'm going to do about 2 more stitches right here. And then I'm going to be tying a knot on the bad side or the underside of this bandana. And so far, we're doing a pretty good job of not being able to see those stitches, which is good. And you can see them a little bit bigger on this side, but this is not the side that people are going to see. So that is just fine as long as you match that embroidery floss to your bandana, you're going to be pretty safe. So I've just tied 2 knots, maybe 3, just for good measure. And then I'm going to cut this embroidery floss down. And we have 1/2 of our bandana finished. We're going to go to the other side and we're going to repeat that same process. And then I'm going to show you how to come back to do the center portion. So on this side, I'm going to double check that my lineup is still good. And I'm using the masking tape to kind of hold down the first row or 2 of my rhinestones. I'm done with the masking tape on this side. So you can see that even with a quick stitch, I kept it pretty close to that line and it's looking pretty good. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to get a little bit more embroidery floss. And like I said before, if you need this embroidery floss to be thinner in order to be able to fit through your needle, you can take just 2 or 3 of these strands apart and kind of just pull them off carefully. And then you can use just 2 or 3 of the strands instead of all the strands. So before you get started, tie another knot at the end. I'm going to tie 2 or 3 so that it's a nice secure knot that's not going to be going through the bandana. And then I'm going to be going underneath to start. And I'll probably be going about 2 rows of rhinestones down. And in those squares in between the rhinestones is where I'm going to come up with my first stitch. And I'm leaving a little bit of space over here, but you can go back and attach it. You just want to make sure that any of the stitches you're making, if this ribbon frays a little bit or if it's already right on the line, it could potentially go away. So I like to start my first stitch a little bit in from the edge just in case there's any fraying. But then I will go back and add another stitch because even if it kind of comes off, you still have it nice and secure with that extra stitch. So I'm going to be doing a running stitch where I'm going up and down and making this line and keeping these stitches in the rhinestones so that you can't really see them. And this is keeping all of these lined up. And you can imagine that at the end, we're going to go back through with our scissors and we're going to cut this rhinestone ribbon and we're going to be able to kind of cut all of these columns and they make for some really awesome fringe. So this same process, what I'm doing, you can do on a bandana. You could do it on the back of like a jean jacket. You could do it across a shoulder on a shirt or on a blouse. You could probably even sew directly onto a cowboy hat, or you could do this method with the bandana and then tie the bandana to your cowboy hat to get some extra rhinestones dangling from that too. So whether you're going for a cowboy chic look or this is just your style, it's going to be an awesome project. So I'm doing this line going across this top by the blue masking tape. And then I am going to go down and do one more line of running stitches towards the bottom of the bandana. And then we're going to be ready for that middle section, which is just a little bit different than the section we're getting done with right now. Tomorrow I have a RIT dye class where I'm going to teach you how to take some wooden objects and dye them using RIT dye. And then speaking of sparkles, I dyed this birdhouse using the RIT dye, and then I attached all kinds of those rhinestones and those crystals onto the top of this birdhouse to really give the birds an extra treat. So feel free to join me tomorrow and I'll show you how to dye some different wooden objects and then how to add some extra paint to really make those objects pop. So we do a lot of different crafts around here, and I'm always happy to have different people join and learn all different kinds of things. So now I'm going with 2 stitches going down towards the end of the bandana. And I'm not all the way to the edge of the bandana. I'm probably about right here. So I'm still leaving just that little bit. But now I'm going to go across right here and give another row of stitches before I tie this off. So with your running stitches, you can make them as big or as small as you feel comfortable with. And it's going to keep this nice and secure. You could potentially use hot glue if you don't know how to sew at all, but I think the rhinestones could potentially melt with your glue being too hot. And I do think it's going to be kind of chunky and bulky. So I think sewing is actually the best way to go if you feel comfortable with that and if you know what you're doing with a couple of basic sewing stitches. Gotta rethread this. I'm curious if anybody that's with us has ever made anything like this before. So let me know in the chat if you've ever made any kind of, added any kind of extra sparkle to anything. Maybe what some of your different techniques have been. I'm curious to see if anybody has ever used this ribbon, rhinestone ribbon before, because I hadn't ever seen it until just last year, and then I became in love with it. All right, I'm at the end, and I'm going to tie a knot, and then we're going to be done with this side also. There we go. And one more. And then I can take off my blue tape. And I have a pretty nice row of rhinestones on both sides. And I do have this chunk in the middle that I want to add something to. And remember, we will fold this into our traditional triangle bandana shape. But with this last bit right here in the middle, we have something special we can do to make this lay nicely. And that's going to be to add another slice of bling. So I'm measuring across the widest part of this opening, which would be right here. And I'm going to cut a strip that's that size. And then I'm going to take this rhinestone section and I'm going to fold it in half to find the center. Now, if it folds perfectly in half, that means that you have an even number of rhinestones. So I'm actually going to cut one of these rows off so that it's an odd number of rhinestones going across and that there is an actual center point. So this time when I fold it in half, there's going to be one row of rhinestones that's actually in the middle that doesn't fold in half. And so that I know is going to be the center. And from that center, I'm going to cut a diagonal. So I'm going to be cutting in between the rhinestones to make this nice angle. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this side. We're coming from that centered diamond rhinestone. I'm going to go through and cut down on a diagonal. And I've made a really nice piece that fits perfectly in here. And if it doesn't fit perfectly in here, you can always trim down one or two rows to make it fit a little bit better. So I do think this is going to fit really nicely for what I'm doing. And at the end, I usually like to cut this rhinestone piece a little bit too, to give it a little bit more flow, a little bit more of an angle. But before I do the cutting down, I'm definitely going to go ahead and put some masking tape here. And we're going to do a couple of stitches on this little square portion right here, just to make sure that that center piece is nice and secured. So I'm going to be using my masking tape again. So I can picture someone doing this in a dorm room with just some masking tape, some thread, some scissors. That's really, this ribbon is pretty much all you're going to need in order to make this happen. So I'm going to cut probably about 20 inches, a little bit longer than a foot, not quite 2 feet. And I'm going to use this embroidery floss again and thread it through my embroidery needle. And all of these needles and supplies that I'm using were attached to this class. So even when this class appears on YouTube, there's still some information about what materials I used that you can see, and you can look up if you want to try this project again later.
Megan, I just really realized that your fingernails are matching the bling.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you for noticing. Uh-huh. I'm trying out here. So here we go. With this diamond, I'm going to be doing some stitches, and I'm going to be going, you don't want to go diagonal because that's going to make your stitches go across rhinestones. But I am going to do my first stitch towards the bottom, and I'm going to be going over, not diagonally, but I'm going to be going over. And then I'm going to, while I'm underneath the bandana, is how I'm going to go up. So then you can go up. So don't move diagonally because you're going to cover up your rhinestones with your thread, but do move up and down. And when you're moving up and down, do that on the underside so that you can't see as many of the stitches on the good side. And I'm just doing a couple of running stitches here, always stitching in that space in between the rhinestones so that I don't cover up any of them with my stitches. There we go. And definitely make sure you get up towards the top to make sure that that part that points towards the center is going to be nice and secure. And then is going to be my favorite part where we go through and make all the rhinestone fringe. So we've been securing all the ribbon, and the ribbon is fun, but it doesn't quite move the way I want it to move. So we are going to be cutting that even further apart in order to make some really cool pieces that will definitely move when you move. And I have about 2 more stitches left to secure this nice and secure. Fabulous. And if there's anything else you feel like you want to go back in, if you want to, you can always whip stitch around. It really depends on how much time you have and how much care you want to put into this. But if you want to do even more stitches to attach these rhinestones even further, you're absolutely able to. But I'm going to go ahead and tie a knot here. And then I'm going to use my scissors and I'm going to go back through and cut that fringe. So I probably am going to do 2 knots here. And 1 more. That looks pretty good. Cutting that down. Cut this tail down a little bit more too. And now I'm ready for my favorite part, where I'm just going to go through each of these, and you can do them as chunks at first. If you want to do 2 at a time, 2 columns or 2 rows at a time, you can, but I'm going to go all the way to 1 at a time just to give it that ultimate amount of movement. And this is just fun. Like, I can't really explain what it feels like to cut through this, but it's got a fun texture. And I don't know, it's very satisfying. And notice that I'm stopping when I cut my fringe. I'm stopping at the bandana, and you're definitely stopping before your stitches because you don't want to cut through any of those parts that you stitched on. But this is going to give you about a little more than an inch that's nice and secure, and then another 5 inches or so that's going to be able to flow. So it's a nice combination of secure and free-flowing rhinestones. And again, you can imagine these on the back of a jeans jacket once you sew it on and then you start doing this fringe. And you can cut this fringe into different patterns. If you don't want them all to be the same length, you can go up and down. You can make some different shapes, make some waves, make some different designs. But this is the most fun part right here, is cutting all of these strips. If you have a rotary cutter, I bet you could do it with that, but I don't think you're going to get the same satisfaction as just a regular pair of scissors. You know? And I have done before, made a mistake where I was holding I accidentally cut off a row, and it's really fine because there's so much movement that you can't tell if one of these is going to end up being shorter than the other one. So don't worry too much about that if you accidentally cut one shorter than you meant to. And I'm going to do this on both sides, and then I'm going to show you a little special feature on the middle again. And that's really it. So definitely in less than an hour, you can completely make this blinged out bandana. And you can do it faster than an hour, I bet too. Once you get going, everybody can kind of gather together and have a party where you all kind of make them together, or you can make them for a bunch of people and everybody kind of go out on the town looking the same. My parents used to put us all in Smurf t-shirts when we would go to Kings Island, which is like a Six Flags kind of amusement park. So I'm just picturing us all back in the day wearing our Smurf shirts if we had blinged out bandanas too. My mom would definitely be able to find all her kids wearing these bandanas.
You know, as you're doing that, I was thinking to take it up just another level.
Uh-huh.
If someone wanted to personalize it,
Yes.
use some rhinestones to put their names
Yes.
on it.
Yeah, and you don't even have to use a bandana. You can use just a fat quarter of any kind of fabric. And so, yeah, like what Felicia's saying, grab your Cricut machine or your cutting machine. You can put some initials. You can put a family reunion. Um, that would be really fun. I would love seeing that.
And definitely, even if you don't have a cutting machine, if you want to grab the um, press on letters,
Mhm.
and even they have the glitter lettering, so that too would be just as great.
I agree. Yep. We have options for people who sew, people who don't sew. We got crafts for everybody. So I am just about done with this fringe, and I think you're going to see the benefits of me cutting this fringe because it just lays really cool. And like I said at the very beginning, you don't want to go all the way up to the corner because you do want to have enough to be able to kind of bundle to be able to do your tie. So I ended up using 8 inches of rhinestone, but you could use 6 inches. If you want even less, you could use 3 inches. And then you can have that whole roll. It's 3 yards of it. So you can definitely make several projects using that same roll of ribbon. And it's a pretty inexpensive craft when all is said and done. I've also sewn this ribbon onto pencil bags before. So if you want to make a special pencil bag for somebody, it's just a fun little accent piece that you can add on as well. I think I've seen this rhinestone ribbon in like a gold also, not just the silver. So if you want more of a gold accent than like the silvery diamond accent, you can make that happen too. Almost there. And when I get to the center, I'm going to do that diagonal cut again to kind of give it more of a central focus and go towards that same center point. And then we'll call it, and I'll show you the final picture. Throw my cowboy hat back on and show you my final fashion statement. So this has been a really fun craft to do, and I hope that you're enjoying crafting along as well. This video will be up on YouTube probably by tomorrow, and then you can check it out and watch it again and again. Grab some friends, grab some more supplies, see what you can do.
So I had another idea.
All right, I'm ready. Hit me.
So, you know how some jean jackets have more like a V shape on the back or however?
Yeah.
Um, you could actually probably get like some Mod Podge or something like that and put the bandana on that
Oh,
jean jacket, the fabric Mod Podge,
oh my God, yeah.
and just to make it a different looking jacket.
Yeah. I love that idea of like, I can picture a white bandana with this rhinestone like on the back of a jean jacket. That would look really cool. I
Hmm.
love that idea. Okay, here we are at the end. So I'm folding this in half to find the center again. And once I know where my center rhinestone is, I'm cutting a diagonal up from there. And I'm just going in between the rows. And I'm going to do the same on the other side, just cutting in between. And then this is going to give me one last strip to kind of cover up that middle section. And I do want to be careful not to cut my bandana. And since it's on a diagonal, I need to be careful. Pay attention to what I'm doing. But I'm cutting up as far as I get to the green bandana, and then I'm stopping. And this is that last bit that really finishes off, because it's kind of hard to do the center, but I like the way that this lays in the center to give it that finished, polished look. Cutting up towards the bandana. And I think I missed one on the other side, and then I'm going to be ready for a front-facing reveal of my fringe bandana. Okay, let me check. Yep, there's one stuck together over here. And there we go. Look at this already. Yes, I'm here for it. I'm folding the bandana into the half, and it's laying already really cool. So you got these kind of going out towards your side and these kind of covering the middle, but when you hang it, there's going to be some more movement down towards this middle section. So I'm ready now, Felicia. Hit me with my other camera. I got my blinged out bandana. I got my cowboy hat, and I feel like I'm a star. So thank you so much for joining me today. And I can't wait to see what you were able to create with this really awesome bling ribbon. So please tag us at Learn with Michaels, or you can share with me personally on my Instagram, which is 4M Coleman. But I want to see your blinged out bandanas. You can also tie those bandanas onto the back of a hat. If you want to give some walking away action, let somebody know what you look like walking away. You can do that too. So thank you so much for coming. It's been a blast. We'll see you soon.